This time, we went through more fertility treatments, able to become pregnant with Noah, and we ended up losing Noah at like 22 weeks. He was stillbirth. And that kind of pretty much put me over the edge. What I was holding on to or still trying to hide from finally got to a point where I couldn't hold it in anymore. And I just asked for help, couldn't go to work, couldn't function. It actually mentally paralyzed me is what it did. And it took me many years to kind of recover from that and to finally go, Kelly, it's okay as a guy. You know, society tells us guys aren't supposed to feel it or acknowledge it or talk about it. And I believed it. And I tell the guys in the Grieving Dads groups I speak to, it's like, there's a time and place to be strong. Dealing with the death of a child is not one of those times. You need to feel it. You need to go there to get here is what I say. Meaning, you got to go to the deep, dark stuff, talk about it, deal with it, process it, however long that takes. This isn't the aftermath of bearing a child is really what my book is about. It's not about how you lost your child, even though I made it a point to have a cross section of people in my first book that I interviewed. You read it. You made me talk about suicide, drug overdose, disease, different ages, different walks of life, different religious beliefs. I want anybody picked up that first book to feel like they can connect with a story in there, and it was written for them.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad to have everybody here. We get these chances in life to meet and chat with people that we admire, people who bring value to our lives and help us unpack things that have happened in our own life. And this happened for me. I had somebody out here on Living the Next Chapter, and in our conversation, we got talking about grief and loss, specifically as parents when we lose our child. And it came up in conversation, made me do some researching. I found an amazing person that I really wanted to talk to. Thankfully, he said yes, and I have time with him today. Kelly Farley's here on the podcast. 2 books you need as a dad to grab. Grieving Dads, To the Brink and Back, and He Lost His Baby Too. Some amazing resources for you and for you to share as well. Kelly's here to share a little bit about his story, how he helps dads like me, and I'm super honored to have him on the podcast. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Excellent, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm glad you found me. I'm glad you reached out, and hopefully we can shed some advice today or some insight on some of the things I went through and what I learned through my journey of losing 2 children.
I'm enjoying your website as well, grievingdads.com. It's got so many great resources on here. Let's start there. I usually do this at the end, Kelly, but for your website, when a new person comes to grievingdads.com, where should they go first? What's the first thing we should look at?
Well, the biggest thing, I got the books. I created the website to kind of more of I used to have a blog years ago, but no one was really going to it anymore. So I kind of streamlined the website last year to make it more about access to the books. And in back of my books, you can now scan a code that takes you to my. Do you see the link at the top? It has the Grieving Dads course.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a course I put out there for Grieving Dads. It's free. It's about 2.5 hours long. It's broke up, but I think in 10 or 11 modules, something like that. It's been about a year since I put it up there. Yeah. But it was about 15 to 20 minutes a piece, or 15 to 20 minutes for each, I guess, episode or module.
Yeah.
And it's really just kind of what I learned, and it kind of echoes what you will read in my book, but it's also hearing it in my voice from a little bit different perspective. And I put that out there for free just so guys have another resource after reading my book. They're looking for something different, maybe to hear from a grieving dad or hear from me in my words, what they read in the book. It's out there. So, use it. And, the book, I wrote the first book really after losing 2 children to be for grieving dads. But one of the things I learned over the years is the fact that it's really about men in general, and what we deal with and how society expects us to behave or how we're supposed to respond to things, adversity in our lives.
I listened to the audiobook for Grieving Dads. I was hitting the rewind button. I almost got in trouble at work, I think, because I was touching my phone too much, because listening to that while I'm supposed to be working, I'm supposed to be working.
Right.
But
now I get it.
You're keeping me company, right?
Hey, I've been there.
your book was keeping me company the whole time. There's so much great value in that book, and then now to have he lost his baby too, as well. There's just so many resources here for dads. Talk a little bit, Kelly, for those who haven't heard the story yet. I know you've told the story many times, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to bring people into the conversation.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your journey and a little bit about your story, because I think I'd like to start there.
Yeah, no problem. I'll start. I'm going back a few years, almost 20 years. Actually, it was the summer of '04. I think it was 21 years that we decided we were going to try to have children. We both were in the corporate world. My wife was an engineer. I was an engineer. And we'd waited kind of in our mid-30s to try, thinking, okay, this is going to be easy. We ended up going through fertility treatments. It wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. We went through fertility treatments. And we ended up becoming pregnant with Katie, and we ended up losing her. It's a miscarriage. Later term miscarriage, unfortunately. And, it kind of took us by surprise. You always hear bad things happen to other people, but until you're in it and you're living it, you don't realize it can also happen to you. And they did. And so after that loss, my wife was pretty devastated. Yeah, I was too, but I didn't want to acknowledge it. She was visually showing it, and I was doing my best to bury it deep. And I thought I was doing a pretty good job of it for about a year and a half. 2005, I was in sales. I also sold real estate during that time, as well as working as an engineer. So I was having a very productive year because I was pretty much running from the pain. I didn't want to stop, think about it. My wife wanted to talk about it all the time. And I tried to not talk about it all the time because I was, like I said, I was trying to run from it. I was always taught as a kid, he kind of, at least for my dad's behavior, I guess, was if you don't talk about something, it didn't happen, or eventually it just goes away. This pain didn't go away. In fact, it continued to get worse. And by would have been the spring of 2006, I started waking up with this weird things I'd never experienced before. I was just waking up crying, just out of the blue. And I wasn't sure what was going on. I never felt depression before in my life. And as I mentioned in the book, I used to think depression was for weak people, and I'm not weak, right? Right.
Yeah.
I was ignorant, unfortunately, during that time, because I never experienced depression before. I didn't know it was real. I always thought you just set some goals, go achieve them, and you can work yourself out of depression. That didn't work so well. I tried it, went to the doctor. Doctor's like, Kelly, I think you're dealing with grief. I said, it's been over a year. It can't be grief. She's like, well, it could be. And so he ended up giving me a prescription. I said, I'm not going to take it. Give me a number to a counselor. I said, I'm not going. He goes, we'll take it anyway. And about a week, I don't know, a couple months later, maybe a week later, I found myself not doing so well, and then finally gave in to asking for that help. That was about the time it was kind of overlapping. At the beginning of 2006, we also decided to try again. And this time, we went through more fertility treatments, able to become pregnant with Noah, and we ended up losing Noah at like 22 weeks. He was stillbirth. And that kind of pretty much put me over the edge. What I was holding on to or still trying to hide from, finally got to a point where I couldn't hold it in anymore. I just asked for help, couldn't go to work, couldn't function. It actually mentally paralyzed me is what it did. And it took me many years to kind of recover from that and to finally go, Kelly, it's okay as a guy. Society tells us guys aren't supposed to feel it or acknowledge it or talk about it. And I believed it. And I tell the guys in the Grieving Dads groups I speak to, it's like, there's a time and place to be strong. Dealing with the death of a child is not one of those times. You need to feel it. Yeah, you need to go there to get here, is what I say.
Yeah.
Meaning, you got to go to the deep, dark stuff, talk about it, deal with it, process it, however long that takes. This isn't the aftermath of bearing a child is really what my book is about. It's not about how you lost your child, even though I made it a point to have a cross section of people in my first book that I interviewed. I wanted, you read it. You made me talk about suicide, drug overdose,
Yeah.
disease, different ages, you know it, different walks of life, different religious beliefs. I want anybody picked up that first book to feel like they can connect with a story in there, and it was written for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I
Yeah.
get from it. With all the different
Yeah.
stories, it's not like one path that you're kind of
Right.
leading people to. Again, it doesn't
Right.
matter really about faith or any of that stuff. It's just here are some real stories from real dads, and the variety of stories. My gosh, I didn't know it
Right.
was coming next. Kelly
Yeah.
had
Yeah. I
no
know.
idea,
It was a
right?
lot. There was a lot of stories in that book, and it was, I talked to thousands of dads, and over the years for that book, hundreds. And unfortunately, I didn't have room for all the stories,
Yeah.
but I've tried to make it a point to share some of those stories over the years, either through my workshop, things I learned after I wrote that book, as far as stories or things, wisdom given to me by other dads I've interviewed over the years since that first book was published in 2012. And I will say this, just to back up real quick, my story. What turned it around for me is finally surrendering, because I didn't see any sort of hope whatsoever. I looked for it, I couldn't find it. Like at despair, the brain's a powerful tool. It could spiral you up or it could spiral you down, and you get on that one momentum or the other. It's hard to get out. I learned, and for me, it was I started enrolling some classes at night outside my corporate job. As I learned, I just couldn't go back, even though I did it. I went back to that corporate gig because it paid the bills. But I, at that point in time, knew I wasn't going to do it for the rest of my life. I had to come up with a new plan, and that's what I did. I enrolled in some classes to become a counselor, which is the last thing anybody would ever think I would be doing. I was a pretty self-serving guy before everything happened. Not as caring and compassionate and understanding as I am today. Then it was just like, oh, you're going through bad stuff. Okay, that's too bad. I gotta go this way. Right? I don't want to hear about it because you're going to bring me down. And 10 being your best day, I never operated below an 8. I didn't know what that felt like.
Yeah.
So I tried to avoid those kind of conversations. Now I try to run toward them. If I can help somebody, I will.
Yeah.
No matter what they're dealing with, whether it's a loss of a child, whatever, whether it's financial ruin, health problem, you name it. If I can help somebody, I try to make it a point to do that now.
And that's kind of when I read that book, I was reading it through my lens, through my wife's story, my story with our what would have been our fourth child. And the one thing, we just had our third. My wife's going back to work, and we found out we were having a fourth, and we're like not expecting that at all. I got the side eye from my wife, like, you big jerk, like, what are you doing? Right. But we hadn't told anybody. Nobody
Right.
knew, just the two of us. Not even our kids knew what was going on. And I just remember a few months in to the pregnancy, say 3 months, maybe almost 4 months, just getting a call saying your wife is on the way to the hospital. And I'm like, for what? Like, I'm at
Right.
work. I have people watching my kids while I'm at work, and I'm at work. My wife's back to work. And the whole thing just kind of happened in the moment, and we couldn't tell anybody. Nobody knew
Right.
what was going on.
Right.
Nobody was celebrating with us the fact that this is next one is coming. Right? It was all
Right.
kind of like we were
It happened so fast, right?
suffering in silence.
Right.
The two of us. And
Good way to describe it. Yeah,
Right.
we were too. Went through the same thing.
it's just this weird feeling of wanting to tell people what's happening, but not knowing what to say.
And most people don't know what to say back,
Right.
right? I hear this all the time. Hey, a friend of mine lost a child. What do I say? What do I do? It's like, well, you don't have to say anything. Acknowledge it. Don't run from it. There's a lot of people that will run from it. I experienced it myself. I've talked to a lot of grieving dads that they've lost friends over this, and not because they got in an argument or anything. It's because the friends disappear.
Yeah.
Like I realized pretty quick the real friends I had that weren't just transactional. Meaning there was people I was friends with that benefited from being friends with me, whether it was from referrals or doing business or whatever. But when I was no longer doing that business,
Right.
they disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call them the good time friends. They only stick around for the good times, right? And then you'll have the ones, and you'll make new friends. There'll be some new people that come along if you open your mind to
Yeah.
go into grief groups or support groups. We got friends that are the dearest of friends that we met during those support groups that are still very dear friends today. They'll do anything for you because we get it. We've both been through it.
When you did all those interviews with these dads and traveled, I love the story about how you got to travel too, how you met this gentleman and he's like, here's my expense thing and you can fly for free. Here you go. I'm like, who does that?
Yep.
That was, first of all, that was amazing to hear that in the book. But you get to go around and talk to these men and hear these stories. Like, what was it like the first few times talking to these men? You're still dealing with what you're dealing with and how you're going to frame this. But was it awkward to meet with these men for the first time and hear these stories?
Yeah, at first it was. The first one's actually in town where I lived. I just wanted to see how it would go. So I met with this guy, and we met at like a Panera. If you have Paneras in Canada. Okay. So we met there. Second one I drove probably I think it was a 6-hour drive over to meet with this guy in Ohio. Interviewed him for a couple hours and drove back 6 hours. At first, you kind of feel like you know each other. It takes a little bit for them to drop their guard, but you're also dealing with people that also volunteered to be interviewed. So there were people that were like, no, not doing it. So they're probably more the quiet type anyway. Yeah. So the ones that said yes are ones a little more outgoing type personalities. There's some of them I had to keep bugging because they had a story that needed to be told. One of the gentlemen's in the book, Kermit the Lashman, the one who lost the son to inner city violence in Chicago. He was a hard one to track down. It took me several months to get him, but it was important. It was an important story that needed to be in the book. And so, was it scary at first to meet people? It wasn't scary. It was just nerve-wracking. I'm like, I didn't know. Where's this going to go, right? I've never written a book before. I'm not an author. I just knew something needs to be out there. And that's why I created a book. Once I surrendered and asked for help, I started looking around for resources. And, you look for resources, you found me.
Right.
I looked for resources, I didn't find anything.
Exactly.
There was nothing out there. No dads were talking about it. No dads were talking about their pain or what society expects, how they're supposed to perform, get back to normal, rub some dirt on it kind of mentality. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go create something. That's kind of how it started. And then I met with a coach, actually. As a professional coach, like a mental head coach. Yeah. And we talked about, where's my life going next? Because I knew I couldn't go back to the engineering gig, or I didn't want to. And so after working there about 6 months, the idea came up of working with grieving dads. It's become a passion of mine to help other men through the loss of a child. But that's kind of evolved even more to just helping men through whatever they're dealing with, whatever that is. Because it's similar society's responses, right? Regardless of what the problem is, one person's trauma is somebody's different trauma, right? Yeah. It doesn't have to be your life circumstance. Doesn't have to be the death of a child. It could be, hey, I got diagnosed with something that's bad, or I lost my job, or I'm losing my house, or my marriage, or whatever. As men, we all go through stuff in life. As humans, we go through stuff in life, but men, I think, have a tougher time of connecting. I think it's getting better. And the reason I say that is in the last couple of years, I've gone out, spoke to people who have lost children at baby loss, more like stillbirth, infant death. Yeah. So the guys are a little younger. They're in their 20s and 30s. And I'm finding that they don't find it as difficult to have resources or to talk about it, which is interesting. Good. I'm 56. Yeah. And so guys in their 30s, I was in my 30s and had lost, nobody was talking about it. It just wasn't. So over the last 20 years, there's been a ripple effect of people out there talking about it. I like to think I had a little bit of a say in this arena, child loss arena, of just dropping a pebble, in the water and seeing that ripple effect. I've heard from dads that have started this and that. Hey, we're doing this. It's great. I love it. And I challenge men, especially in the second book. I really challenged them because I think the secret to surviving is not just surrendering, it's also finding something to honor your child. To do something with your life that's purpose-driven to make your children proud of their dad. It's amazing. I love
that part. Yeah. I love that part.
It's amazing to me to see the light bulbs go off when I'm speaking to a group of men. Because they're all looking for, how do I get through this? Because nobody wants to go back to the corporate or job like nothing happened. It did happen. You know too much. You can't go back to that guy before he's gone. But you can create a new guy, and that guy could be somebody that honors his children, right? Yeah. Whether they're here or not here. you can still live a life that would make them proud of their dad.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see that, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do something. It's pretty cool.
And the stories of good things that have come as the result of terrible news, right? Things that have really been bad, but there's been something that's positive that's come out of this, even though it's hard to imagine, that hope. The one thing that I picked up too was just as dads that were part of this terrible, terrible club, right? And I'm like, oh, that really sat with me for a while. I kind of had to process that a little bit, that you feel alone in this club, but there's more people than just one person in this club, right? And that's why I love what you did through the book, the interviews, and the resources. Again, I searched for you, and it was pretty easy to find you in a world where there's not as many resources. I'm glad it's getting better, but again, we're the same age. When I was going through this, I don't even remember a doctor coming in to talk about me at all in any of this.
Oh, yeah.
I had a quick update on my wife. She didn't need a blood transfusion, and you can see her in a few hours. That was it. That was the doctor. That was done. And I walked out of that hospital just with so much grief and sorrow and confusion and
fear,
right? And no resources. And we get a pamphlet that shows me how to take care of my wife.
That's it.
Flip it over. There's nothing about me on this pamphlet, but what I can do to help her. And I know I need to help her, but there was nobody to help me.
Right.
And that
no
was
one was
gap.
surrounding you to lift you up as well, right? I mean, we do what we can to help others, but there's times, and I realized I was diagnosed early on. Well, not early on. It took me a couple of years to finally go to a psychiatrist to actually diagnose me with PTSD. I was in the room when we delivered my son, who had already passed. That messed me up, and the PTSD part of that, I thought I was dealing with grief, and she's like, no, Kelly, it's not just grief. You've got also signs of trauma. And I tell these dads that because a lot of these dads will find their, you read the first chapter where the guy found his 15-year-old hanging from his ceiling fan in the bedroom.
Right.
Trauma? Yeah, it's trauma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's certain things you sitting in a waiting room waiting, didn't know if your wife was going to survive this or not. It's a form of trauma, right? It impacts your nervous system. And I always told the guys in the groups, it's not just trauma. PTSD is just not reserved for guys returning home from battle. It's also anybody that's gone through anything traumatic, and the loss of a child, or if you're especially around it when it happened, or got the call at 3 o'clock in the morning, or someone showed up your door to tell you your child died in an automobile accident. Yeah. It's all trauma. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So your hope for the book when you were writing it, the first book, when you did all your interviews and everything, kind of what was your landing point? This is kind of my target. This is why I'm doing this. And how did you know you met the target?
Oh, the biggest thing was, I wasn't sure I was going to start a book right away. I knew I was starting a blog, and that was in 2009. I remember it was December 2009. I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I still remember exactly where I was at. My wife was working on something at the other end. And I'm like, man, I got to come up with a name for this thing. I don't know. What's the domain? I'm up Grieving Dads. And we're both like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's come up with Grieving Dads. So that's the domain. And then by the 1st of January, once my first blog posting hit, I started hearing from guys. I'm like, hey, apparently this is resonating with people. And then I had a lot of people reaching out to me. Oh, thank you for writing this. And I'm like, okay, I'm on to something. Because I pitched I hired what they call not a ghostwriter, but somebody to help me pitch it to literary agents.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I did that. I worked for months trying to get something pitched to literary agents. Rejected multiple times, and I'd hired a ghostwriter to help me with the script to pitch to them, and I decided it was pretty soft. It wasn't the tone I really wanted, and so I scrapped it after a lot of literary agents in New York said, nah, guys don't buy this type of stuff. I'm like, nah, you know what, if they know it existed, they will. If they knew it was okay to do that, they will. I mean, maybe they won't, but their wives, their spouses, their significant others, their sisters, or whatever will buy it for them if they can find it.
Right.
And so I guess I fired, the first ghostwriter. We let them good terms, but she just couldn't capture what I was looking to capture. Yeah. And I mentioned the book. I grew up pretty blue collar, so I need to be spoken to kind of the same way. Yeah. Not just, like I say, I don't want to hear from some guy in a sweater vest who's never buried a child try to tell me how I'm feeling when I should process this,
Right.
or the most healthy way to process it, right? So I came at it with a little sharper message. I always say it's not a rainbows and butterfly grief book, and I think you could probably
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
can attest to that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about another written angels in heaven or anything like that. It's the truth, and it's hard hitting. And I say it speaks the truth. It's about dealing with the aftermath of bearing a child. It's not about how you lost a child. We're all in this together. It's a brotherhood. The guys I'm around. It's call me anytime. I still hear from dads that call me. There's a couple of dads I still call. Actually, in fact, one of the guys I interviewed in Buffalo, I still call him. Time to time. We lost our dog a couple of years ago, and we had to make a decision with him, the dog, but just having him at the house and him passing away. It sounds weird to some people, but it triggered a lot of like the stuff early on, like that I experienced. Because we got him right after losing our son. So he's kind of like, we poured into him, right? We poured into this dog. He was loved, and he's our third child, we call him, because we have no living children.
Yeah.
And so he was the benefit of a lot of love. So having to say goodbye to him, I had a couple of rough days there, and I'm like kind of freaking out, thinking I was going to go back to that deep, dark grief. So I call one of the grieving dads I'd interviewed to become friends with over years. He's like, Callie, yeah, I get it. I understand. We had to put our dog down and my son's dog 5 years afterwards, and that was his best friend. So I get it. So yeah, it's a brotherhood. And if we can help each other, we will. Like there's nothing off. We get together. There's no topic off subject or off that we can't off limits. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
The one thing you touch on many times in a great way, the whole idea around, is there a cure for grief? Your thoughts?
Oof. Is there a cure for it?
Yeah. It's something we need to work through and live through, right?
Yeah, you got to live. Yeah. Is there a cure? I always say it, like I've said it in the book, and if I didn't, it's a line I should have put in there because it's pretty good. My wife and I use it. You can get through it, but you never get beyond it. Mm-hmm. That makes sense? Yeah. There's a before and after. We're always like, did that happen? Did that happen before we lost Katie and Noah, or is that after? It's always going to be a part of me. Does it control my day, my thoughts? No, not 20 years later. Did it first to 5 years? Yeah, it did. And I can tell dads this. I can't tell you how long it takes to get through the loss of a child. I've been to meetings, to grief meetings. There's one in particular, international one I've been to speak. There's people that's been there for 25 years, been going every month.
Right.
They haven't moved on. They're still very stuck. Yeah. So when I say a cure it, I think you can become stuck in grief, and I think you can become unstuck in grief. Right? Doesn't mean it controls every aspect in your life, but it still touches every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think that you touched on that when people have all of these memorabilia around their children and their loss, and they have pins and they have things that remember them, and they just never, ever let those things go.
No.
Right? And it's like they can't move past that stage. They're stuck, right? To your point?
No.
Right.
I think that has to do a little bit with what I say in a lot in my second book is find a way to live your life in a way to honor your child.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes maybe in their mind wearing a pin for the last 20 years every month, and feeling it just as emotional every single month.
Right.
Is that honoring your child? I don't know. I let them make that decision.
Yeah.
If it makes them feel like they are, they are. I'm not here to judge anybody. Everybody's journey on this is a little different. But I think I guess what I'm trying to say, you don't have to be stuck in it.
Yeah.
Right? You can go live a very, very good life afterwards. I no longer tolerate, I touch on this a lot in my second book, I no longer tolerate things in my life that I used to tolerate. I worked a job I didn't like I mentioned to you before we jumped on this. I retired a year and a half ago. It was a career I never really liked, but I took chances and took risks doing things I wouldn't have done before. So it kind of taught me how to live my life. That line in the book, it says, life has a way of teaching you how to live it. Yeah. It's true. If you let it, like if there's a lot of people live their life and like, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Now, I just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can And I've seen both. I've seen people get a lot more fears in their life. For me, it was the opposite. The fear of dying has gone away. The fear of flying. I used to hate flying. The fear of public speaking, doing something like this, I would never do. I would never do it before.
Yeah.
Now it's like, whatever, you fumble through a few words and whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of life. I kind of look at it this way. Look, I've buried two children. There's nothing you're going to do or say to me that's going to be any worse than that.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that into my job too. And I had people I worked with that were great people. They weren't difficult to work with. I just didn't enjoy work. But I never allowed anybody to leverage me. I had no problem ever saying, no, I'm not doing that. And I don't really care I don't really care what happens and mean it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I also positioned my life in a way to make sure I could say no. And I don't really care what you do. Fire me, not fire me. I don't care.
Yeah. And I picked up on the whole idea of people saying their worst day. I have a flat tire on the way to work today. Oh, the worst day ever. And you're like, really? Wow. I've got some stories for you.
Yeah.
It's a totally different perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah, not even my stories. I got thousands of stories of dads, and I've heard some stuff since the first book that would make your skin crawl. Some of these stories I've had to look up that were like, "Is this real? Is this a real story?" Like new stories. Yeah, it's people go through some horrific things, and you don't realize it because most people don't talk about it. You might see a news blurb about it, but you don't get to. And that's what part of the first book. I wanted to give people a peek behind the curtain of what these people deal with after they bury a child. All right. It's one thing to say, oh, so-and-so's child committed suicide. It's another thing to realize and hear the story of a guy and his wife that go out for dinner, and they come home and open the bedroom door and realize the kid has shot himself with a shotgun in his head and seeing what was left on the wall behind it. Right? That's reality. That's their reality. That's what they're going to see every single day, probably for the rest of their life in some way. Where if you just go to the funeral, say you're sorry and move on, you don't understand what these people have gone through. So that's the reason why the book is a little more transparent.
Yeah.
And so you could see, like, it's not just going, hey, they lost their child. Well, it's been a year. How come they're not back to normal?
Are you over it yet already?
Right. Yeah. Right. I think for me, like I talk about, we had to go to a baby store just after losing a child because we had a memorial service for Noah, but we had to go pick out an outfit for him. All right. And we're in this baby store trying to hold it together because there's pregnant women everywhere. Right.
Yeah, I know.
We're no longer one of them. Yeah. And you're trying to find an outfit to bury your child in that is good enough for your child. Right. Because nothing's ever good enough for your child that you lost. You want the best, right? You want to give them, like, I want them to, like, have everything. And it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Right.
So dealing with that and then seeing everybody in the store that's pregnant, like, and regardless of the age, it could be your 25-year-old son you lost, and trying to go pick out clothes for them to wear for their funeral, however you decide to do it, But it's just, it's all the stuff nobody thinks about that goes on behind the scenes after someone loses a child.
Yeah, and then I guess the other side that you touch on too is the anger that comes along too, like seeing a dad and a daughter playing in the park, and you're like, I'll never have that, right? And you get that sadness, disappointment comes right back again out of nowhere. Like you weren't even thinking about it in the moment, but something catches your eye, a movie, a commercial on TV, something. You're like, you're right back, right?
Yeah, all of that conversation. Just you touched on anger, and this is a big topic I've had with a lot of the dads is, and I ask people this, what's the one emotion that society says is okay for men to express? Anger, right? Oh, he's pissed off, he's blowing off steam. Well, that's okay, you could say that, but to say, oh, he was crying, like everybody feels uncomfortable with a guy that's crying in a room, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, what do I do with this? Even I did, even now, I shouldn't say that. Even now, I don't run from it. Before, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's okay. Hey, you'll be okay. Yeah. Now it's like, I just sat with somebody, right? It's a natural reaction, right? But society gets really uneasy when there's a guy crying. But if he's pissed off, he's mad, he's showing anger, well, that's just what he does.
Yeah.
That's okay, right?
Yeah. Kelly, I'm so glad that I found you from a simple search online, and that these resources are there. I'm happy to hear things are improving, but I still think these books have so much value for dads. I would love to kind of wrap up with this, Kelly, and just turn the podcast over to you. There's a dad listening to this. They found us as a search. They're here.
Right.
I want to make sure they have a great introduction with you and your resources. But if you could talk to that dad who's alone in that situation right now, there's nobody here for him in this moment, and you could have a few minutes with them.
Yeah.
Can you kind of wrap us up here? And if we missed anything, please. But I just want to talk to that guy today. What do you want to say?
Yeah. I guess the biggest thing I want to say is you're not alone. There's a lot of us out there, and we're all willing to help you if we can. Biggest thing is you got to put yourself out there, right? You got to surrender. I've said that many times. I've probably said it many times on this podcast. I've said it many times in my book. You got to find a way to surrender. Surround yourself with other people, other men that are dealing with the loss of a child or dealing with whatever you're dealing with. Maybe it's not even the loss of a child. Maybe you're dealing with something else. Find a community of people that are also going through it. Don't be embarrassed to go because you're worried about showing emotions, because that stopped me for a long time. And I probably inflicted more damage to myself than needed to be if I would have just surrendered and just become transparent. Let your feelings out. You got to get that stuff out of you. The deep, dark stuff has to come out. I got a call a couple of years ago from a guy. I could tell he'd been drinking. He was from San Diego. He's like, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. Find myself drinking more. I lost my 2-year-old. It's not going well. I said, have you gone to any support groups? Have you looked for help? Well, no, I don't want to do that. I said, okay. I said, well, how's this, what you're doing right now, how's that working for you? Is that working? No. That's why I called you. I'm like, okay. So if it's not working, why do you keep doing it? And why don't you just try this other thing? Maybe it'll help. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But what you're doing, what you're telling me is not working, right? No, it's not. Well, then try something different. It's okay to try something different. You don't have to give up because, hey, this isn't working, so pain's not going away. It's never going to go away. I surrender, and, that's just how life's going to be. It doesn't have to be that way. You can go on and live a very fulfilling life in a way that honors your child. So if you need help with that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm sure Dave will give you my contact information. My information is in the back of all my books. Dave can probably attest to that. He's read them. Phone number's in there as my direct cell phone number and an email. So feel free to reach out to me if I can help you.
Kelly, I love it. grievingdads.com is a website. Again, go there, share this with somebody. There's probably, if you don't know how to answer this and you don't know how to be there for somebody, these books will help you, right? If somebody you know and love is dealing with this, these are great resources.
And we all know somebody,
right?
Yeah, we all know somebody who's lost a child.
Yeah.
I mean, I carry a trunk full of them, and it's amazing to me how the universe has put people in front of me. And I always find a way to work in the conversation of that I've written a book. Because what's that always do? People are like, oh, you wrote a book. What'd you write it about? Well, it's kind of a heavy subject matter, but here's what it is. It's amazing to me how many people either have lost a child or their close relatives lost a child. And so I'm able to give them a copy of my book and help people. So we all know somebody, whether we think we do or not. And hopefully this book can be a resource to them. Excellent.
Kelly, thank you so much for having time for me.
No problem.
Thank you for being the result of my search. Well done.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you looking for me. I'm glad you reached out. Yeah, I'm glad you reached out.
Excellent.
And make this happen, so it's good.
Yeah, and I'll be following along. I hope that we see much more from you in the future as well, and you continue doing what you're doing and continue helping people. Thank you so much for showing up for us dads. Kelly, I really appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Yep, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Excellent.
Thanks, Dave.
Everyone, all the information is always in the show notes. Go over to grievingdads.com. Connect with Kelly. I know he'd love to hear from you. When you buy his books, please leave a review. I know Kelly would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Please.
Good.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Yeah, appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Kelly. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.